Resident Evil has turned scientists, soldiers, and innocent people into some of the most horrifying creatures in gaming history. But the transformations aren't just gross for the sake of it. The best ones are tragic, watching someone lose everything that makes them human, one mutation at a time. So today, we're breaking down the most disturbing transformations in the entire franchise, starting with the one that kicked off Raccoon City's worst night, William Birkin. William Birkin spent his entire career building a weapon that would eventually destroy him. And honestly, that's kind of poetic in the worst possible way. Before he became a walking tumor with anger issues, Birkin was one of Umbrella's most brilliant virologists. He was a key mind behind the T-virus, and later, he discovered something even worse, the G-virus, a strain so dangerous that Umbrella itself wanted to take it from him by force. He'd isolated it from Lisa Trevor, a woman experimented on for over 20 years, whose body had absorbed so many progenitor strains it became a living archive of everything Umbrella had ever created. Birkin looked at that and thought, I can work with this, which is, not ideal. By September 1998, Umbrella sent the USS to raid his lab beneath Raccoon City and seize the samples. They shot him multiple times and left him bleeding out on the floor. But dying men make desperate choices. Birkin grabbed a syringe of raw, unstabilized G-virus and jammed it into his own body. Not a prepared dose, a lab sample injected as a last act of defiance, and that single detail is what turns his story from a bad day into a 5-stage nightmare. G1 still looks vaguely like a person if you squint hard enough and ignore the massive eyeball growing out of his shoulder. He's still wearing his lab coat. Something about that detail makes it worse. But the G-virus doesn't stop. Every time Birkin takes enough damage, instead of dying like a reasonable organism, the virus triggers another evolution. G2 adds claws and exposed muscle. G3 sprouts multiple limbs and secondary jaws. G4 fossilizes his extra arms and fuses them into his torso, like the virus tried to design, got bored, and moved on. And then there's G5. G5 isn't a creature. It's a biological event, a pulsating mass of flesh and eyes that fills an entire train car. No silhouette, no lab coat, no face, just a throbbing wall of tissue that used to be a man who thought he was the smartest person in the room. But here's where it gets genuinely disturbing. Through every mutation, Birkin keeps hunting for his daughter, Sherry, 12 years old, wandering the sewers while her father lurches through walls trying to find her. The G-virus has a built-in reproductive drive, a compulsion to implant embryos into genetically compatible hosts, and his own daughter is the most compatible host available. So what you're watching across Resident Evil 2 isn't just a monster getting bigger, it's a father's love being hijacked by a virus and twisted into something predatory. He's not protecting Sherry, he's trying to infect her. The scientist who spent decades perfecting viral manipulation became raw material for his own experiment. Every form he takes is a reminder that the G-virus doesn't care about your genius. It just builds. But if Birkin's story is about a man destroyed by his own ambition, the next one is about something far worse. A child who never got a choice at all, Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor is the single most tragic character in the entire Resident Evil franchise, and it's not even close. She's also one of the most disturbing things Umbrella ever created, which is saying something when Umbrella's baseline for a normal Tuesday is already horrifying. Here's the setup. In 1967, Umbrella lured architect George Trevor and his family to the Spencer Mansion under the pretense of a visit. Once they arrived, Umbrella abducted his wife Jessica and 14-year-old daughter Lisa for progenitor virus testing. Jessica's body rejected the virus, so Umbrella killed it. Results deemed uninteresting, which is, not ideal, but Lisa's body did something nobody expected. Instead of dying, her cells incorporated the virus into a stable, symbiotic relationship. Her physiology didn't shut down, it adapted. And the moment researchers saw that, they made a decision that would define the next 30 years of her existence. They kept her. For nearly 3 decades, Lisa lived as a prisoner beneath the Spencer Mansion, functioning as Umbrella's most reliable test subject. They injected her with T-virus prototypes. They implanted the Nemesis alpha parasite into her body, the same organism later used to create the Nemesis T-type. Her immune system treated it like a light snack, absorbed the parasite, destroyed it, added its DNA to her own genome. That gave her tentacles. By 1988, researchers isolated a unique progenitor strain from her blood that became the foundation for William Birkin's G-virus. Every nightmare the G-virus ever produced traces back to what was living inside this girl's bloodstream. She wasn't just a test subject, she was a biological archive of everything Umbrella ever tried to build. The cumulative result is a body that has no business still being alive, swollen with tumor-like growths, tentacles erupting from her back, regenerative abilities so extreme that Umbrella literally couldn't would not kill her. They tried, multiple times. Her cells just kept rebuilding. And then there's the face. Lisa wears the skin of her dead mother's face over her own, torn from the corpse because she recognized it. Because somewhere inside decades of viral mutation, a part of her still knew what her mother looked like, still wanted her back. That's what makes Lisa genuinely hard to deal with. Her diary entries show a slow deterioration of language, but one thread runs through all of them. She asks where her mother is. 30 years of being injected with every nightmare compound Umbrella could synthesize, and the one thing that survived was a 14-year-old girl's grief. When STRS encounters her in 1998, fighting Lisa doesn't feel like fighting a monster. It feels like putting down a victim of systematic abuse who happens to be functionally immortal. The only thing that finally stops her is the complete structural collapse of the Arklay facility. It took an entire building falling on her to end what 30 years of experimentation couldn't. Lisa Trevor is proof that the worst thing Umbrella ever did wasn't creating monsters. It was refusing to let one die. But if you think Lisa's story is hard to stomach, wait until you see what happens when you shove multiple parasites into a single human body and strip away everything, including the tragedy. The Regenerador. There's a moment in Resident Evil 4 that every single player remembers. You're walking through the island laboratory and you hear it before you see it. This wet, rasping breathing, like someone trying to inhale through a collapsed lung. Then it rounds the corner, and you realize two things simultaneously. 1. This thing used to be a person. 2. You cannot kill it. The Regenerador is what happens when Los Illuminados decides one Plaga parasite per body isn't enough. Instead of implanting a single parasite into a host, researchers stuffed multiple Plagas into one human body, scattering them throughout the torso and limbs like biological landmines. The result is a creature with cellular regeneration, so aggressive it can regrow entire limbs in seconds. Shoot its arm off, it grows back. Blow a hole through its chest, the flesh knits together before you can reload. It's less a monster and more a biological error message that refuses to close. And it looks the part. Gray, rubbery skin draped over an elongated frame like a suit that doesn't quite fit. Tiny glowing eyes, a mouth that stretches far wider than any human jaw should allow, and this slow, deliberate wobble, like it's learning to walk using someone else's legs. Every step is accompanied by that breathing, that horrible rhythmic wheezing that sounds like a broken ventilator in an abandoned hospital. Here's where it gets really fun. You empty an entire magazine into one of these things, and it just stands there absorbing rounds, like you're throwing rice at a wedding. Limbs pop off, chunks of flesh scatter across the floor, and for half a second you think you've done it. Then the stumps bubble, the tissue inflates, and the limb comes back. The Regenerador doesn't care about your shotgun. It has exactly one weakness, and the game makes you earn it. The only way to actually put one down is to destroy the Plaga parasites hidden inside its body. You can't see them with the naked eye. You need the biosensor scope, an infrared attachment that reveals glowing hotspots where the parasites are nestled deep within the creature. Without it, you're just rearranging meat. The game deliberately delays giving you this scope, which means your first encounter is pure, unfiltered panic. You're burning through ammo on something that won't die, backing into corners, listening to that breathing get closer. Then there's the Iron Maiden variant, which is basically a Regenerator that woke up and chose violence. Same regeneration, same breathing, but now with retractable spikes covering its entire body. It can extend its arms, grab you from across the room, reel you in, and impale you on every spike simultaneously, which is, not ideal. What makes the Regenerador truly disturbing isn't the regeneration or the spikes, it's the helplessness. Every other enemy in Resident Evil 4 can be dealt with using skill, timing, and enough bullets. The Regenerador breaks that contract. It tells you your weapons don't work, the rules no longer apply, and you're going to stand there listening to wet breathing while you figure out what to do. Nobody who played this section forgot it. But if you think fighting one thing that won't stay dead is bad, wait until you meet something that was specifically engineered to never stop chasing you. Nemesis. Most bioweapons in Resident Evil are accidents. Someone gets infected, loses control, and the body does whatever it wants. Nemesis is the opposite. He was built on purpose, and that's what makes him terrifying. Here's the setup. Umbrella's Tyrant line, the T-103 series, were physically impressive, but basically brain dead. The T-Virus gave them size, strength, and durability, but it fried their higher brain functions. You've got a 7-foot wall of muscle that can punch through a car door but can't figure out how to open one, so Umbrella Europe's 6th laboratory developed a parasite called the NE-alpha. The idea was elegant in the most horrifying way possible. Implant a parasite directly into a tyrant's brain and let the parasite do the thinking. The Ania would latch onto neural tissue, restore cognitive function, and give the creature something no other tyrant had: actual, tactical, mission-oriented intelligence. And it worked. The result is the Nemesis T-type, a T-103 body fused with a NE-alpha parasite, creating something that can use weapons, execute complex pursuit strategies across an entire city, and speak. Sort of. Its vocabulary consists of exactly one word: STRS, which is, not ideal if you're a member of Raccoon City's elite police unit during the 1998 outbreak, but the body horror goes way beyond a big guy in a trench coat. The NEA parasite actively mutates the host, producing tentacles that erupt from Nemesis' arms and back without warning. They stab, they grab, they can even infect other organisms. Nemesis isn't just a weapon, he's a walking parasite distribution system who also happens to carry a rocket launcher. And here's where it gets complicated. Every time you deal enough damage to think you finally put him down, his T-virus metabolism triggers accelerated healing and structural reorganization. Blow off the trench coat, tentacles multiply. Destroy enough tissue, new acid-secreting glands develop. He's not just regenerating, he's adapting, specifically to whatever just hurt him. By the final encounter in Resident Evil 3, the thing that was once vaguely humanoid has become a towering, amorphous mass of flesh and tentacles. The Enia parasite has essentially consumed the tyrant from the inside out. At that point, calling it Nemesis feels generous. It's more like a building-sized digestive system with anger issues. What makes Nemesis truly unsettling is the psychology of being hunted by something that learns. Mr. X follows you through a police station. Nemesis follows you through an entire city, shows up when you don't expect him, and evolves countermeasures in real time. He's not wandering, he's hunting. There's a difference, and your nervous system knows it. The original human host? Nobody knows who they were. Umbrella didn't see a person when they started this project. They saw raw material. The host's name, history, and personality were overwritten the moment the parasite took root. All that remains is a mission directive and a single word repeated until someone finally puts enough ordnance into it. But if Nemesis represents brute force engineering taken to its logical extreme, wait until you see what happens when a child prodigy with a god complex decides to engineer herself using ant DNA Alexia Ashford. Most people in Resident Evil get infected against their will. Alexia Ashford looked at a virus and said, "Yes, please, I'll take one of those." And then she took a nap for 15 years to make sure it worked properly, which is, not ideal. Here's the thing about Alexia. She wasn't some desperate scientist bleeding out on a lab floor. She was a 10-year-old clone with an IQ that made every adult in the room look like they were still learning to tie their shoes, and she decided the best use of her talents was to become a god. Not metaphorically, she literally engineered a virus designed to turn her into a queen organism that could control every living thing around her. The virus is T. Veronica, created by combining the progenitor virus with queen ant genes and plant DNA. 3 completely separate biological kingdoms stitched into one horrifying cocktail. The idea was modeled on ant colonies. One queen at the top, total obedience beneath her. That was always the plan, but raw T. Veronica was too volatile. Her own father got an early version, and it turned him into Nosferatu, a blind, mutated wreck chained to the Antarctic facility's basement. Alexia looked at what happened to her dad and thought, "I can do better." So she injected herself and went into cryogenic sleep for 15 years, betting everything on a slow symbiosis, letting her keep control where he lost it. And honestly, it worked. When she wakes up in 1998, Alexia can generate flammable blood, control swarms of infected ants, and manipulate tendrils of plant biomass like extensions of her own body. She still looks human, pale, composed, walking around the Antarctic base like she owns it. She looks at Chris Redfield and Albert Wesker the way you'd look at ants on your kitchen counter. But when she actually starts fighting, the elegance drops fast. Her first transformation sheds her human skin entirely. Underneath is chitinous flesh, elongated insect limbs, and organic appendages that look like a cross between plant vines and arthropod legs. The queen metaphor was never a metaphor. She's becoming a literal insect queen, complete with an oviduct structure connecting her to the surrounding environment like a hive node. Then it gets worse. Her insect arms develop into full wings, and she tears free, mutating into something resembling a giant dragonfly. Her blood functions like acidic plant sap. She's not a woman anymore. She's the central node of an entire T. Veronica ecosystem. Ants and parasitic vines and biomass all answering to her. The unsettling part isn't the body horror, though. It's that she wanted this. Every stage was planned and executed with the same cold precision she used to graduate university at age 10. She turned her father into a failed experiment without blinking. She forced Steve Burnside to mutate for what appears to be equal parts research and entertainment. Alexia didn't lose her humanity to the virus. She traded it, willingly, enthusiastically. The virus just gave her the body to match the ego. But if Alexia's transformation was a carefully orchestrated ascension into something inhuman, the next one on our list is the exact opposite. A warm, caring mother who never asked for any of it, twisted into something that crawls on ceilings and births swarms of insects from her own body, Marguerite Baker. Before Resident Evil 7, the series had never really done domestic horror. You had labs, mansions, police stations. But a family home in the bayou where a mother tries to feed you dinner? That's new. And Marguerite Baker is the reason it works, because she takes everything comforting about a maternal figure and turns it into something that makes your skin crawl. Here's the setup. In 2014, the Baker family finds a young girl named Eveline washed ashore after a hurricane wrecks a tanker near their Louisiana property. They bring her inside because that's what decent people do. They didn't know Eveline was a genetically engineered bioweapon built using a weaponized fungus called the mold. Her entire purpose was to infect and assimilate people into a family she could dominate, and the Bakers walked right into it. Marguerite's infection is gradual. The mold colonizes her body, rewrites her biology, and warps her mind, but it doesn't erase her personality. It corrupts it. Before infection, Marguerite was a caring mother. She cooked, kept the house together, welcomed strangers. After the mold takes hold, she still does all of those things. She still insists you sit down at the dinner table. She still prepares meals. The meals just happen to contain human organs and mold-tainted flesh now, which is, not ideal. The domestic horror angle is what separates her from every other transformation on this list. You're not fighting her in a lab or a castle. You're fighting her in a house with family photos on the walls. She screams at you the way an angry parent would, except her jaw unhinges and a centipede crawls out of her mouth mid-sentence. Just a completely normal thing to do at the dinner table, but her boss fight is where the body horror fully commits. She retreats to the old greenhouse, and by the time you find her again, she's barely human. Her limbs have elongated into spider-like appendages. Her lower abdomen has swollen into a massive, insect-like egg sac, an ovipositor producing waves of mutant insects she controls as extensions of her own body. She doesn't just command them, she births them. Her entire reproductive system has been hijacked into a factory for mold-based swarms. Great, add that to the list. What makes Marguerite genuinely tragic is the origin of the whole nightmare. She got infected because she tried to help a child. That's it. Eveline looked like a scared little girl, and Marguerite's maternal instincts kicked in. The mold then took those exact instincts and amplified them into something violent and possessive. Her obsession with feeding people, keeping the family together, protecting the household, all of it is a twisted amplification of who she actually was. Eveline didn't invent a new personality. She just turned the volume up to a frequency that produces nightmares. The nurturing mother became the brood mother. The family dinner became a forced feeding. The warm home became a hive. And all because she opened her door to a stranger. But if you think a woman fusing with a swarm of insects is bad, wait until you see what a dominant species Plaga does to a trained soldier's arm. Jack Krauser. Most people in Resident Evil get infected against their will. Krauser walked up to the parasite and said, "Yes, please." Here's the thing. Before the Plaga, Jack Krauser was already dangerous. Special ops soldier. Partnered with Leon Kennedy on a mission in South America back in 2002. Genuine mutual respect between two elite soldiers. But that mission ended with Krauser's left arm severely injured, bad enough to force him into early retirement, and that's where everything goes sideways. Because Krauser didn't retire gracefully. He didn't pick up fishing or start a podcast. He stewed. A career soldier stripped of the only thing that gave his life meaning, watching his body fail him while the government moved on without a second thought. So when Albert Wesker came knocking with an offer and a parasite, Krauser didn't hesitate. He voluntarily infected himself with a dominant species Plaga, a strain fundamentally different from the ones turning villagers into ganados. Subordinate Plagas make you a puppet. Dominant Plagas make you the puppeteer. Krauser kept his mind, his tactical expertise, everything. He just also happened to be carrying a monster inside his left arm now, and that arm. That arm is where Krauser goes from interesting villain to genuine body horror showcase. During his confrontation with Leon, Krauser literally throws his gun on the ground, tells Leon to witness the power. His left arm, the same arm that ended his career, suddenly ruptures. The skin tears apart, and what emerges is a massive bladed claw covered in chitinous armor plating, stretching into a scythe-like appendage that can deflect bullets and cut through steel. The Plaga didn't just heal his old injury, it overcompensated. It took his greatest weakness and turned it into the deadliest weapon in the room. But here's where it gets complicated. Krauser controls this. He triggers the mutation at will, shifting between human form and bladed nightmare depending on the situation. The rest of his body stays enhanced with superhuman speed and reflexes. He's not a shambling monster, he's a precision instrument that happens to have a sword for an arm. And the whole time, he's talking, taunting Leon, bringing up their shared history like two old friends catching up, except one of them has a bone blade where his forearm used to be. He genuinely believes the Plaga didn't corrupt him, it completed him. The irony is that the thing he's most proud of is growing out of the exact spot where his humanity cracked in the first place. Krauser chose this. Nobody kidnapped him, nobody tricked him. He looked at a parasite that fuses with your nervous system and restructures your skeletal tissue and thought, yeah, that'll fix me. He got his strength back, got his purpose back. He just had to trade his loyalty, his honor, and whatever was left of the man Leon once respected. His death proves the obvious point. The Plaga made him stronger. It didn't make him invincible. All that deliberate self-destruction in pursuit of physical perfection. And he still ends up bleeding out in a ruin, which is, not ideal. But if you think a soldier voluntarily turning his arm into a blade is as far as Plaga mutations go, wait until you see what happens when an aristocrat decides to merge his entire body with the mother organism that births the parasites in the first place. Ramon Salazar. Ramon Salazar is, without question, the most annoying villain in Resident Evil 4. He's a tiny, shriveled little man who dresses like an 18th century aristocrat, talks like he's rehearsing for community theater, and walks around flanked by two towering insect bodyguards, because apparently that's a normal thing to do. He taunts you through the entire castle section with his smug, high-pitched voice, acting like he's some kind of unstoppable force of nature. But here's the thing. Salazar isn't just annoying. He's a traitor to his own bloodline. The first Castellan sealed Las Plagas beneath the castle centuries ago and made it his family's sworn duty to keep them locked away forever. Every Salazar after him upheld that responsibility. Every single one. Until Ramon. This guy breaks the seal, helps Los Illuminados dig the parasites back up, infects his own village, and hands Sadler the biological arsenal he needs to threaten the entire world. All because some cult leader told him it was a good idea. And he didn't just tag along for the ride. He accepted a dominant species Plaga, giving him control over lesser Ganados, his Verdugo bodyguards, and basically every infected creature in the castle. He had full cognitive function the entire time. This wasn't mind control. He knew exactly what he was doing. When Leon finally corners him, Salazar doesn't run. He walks up to the Queen Plaga, this massive flower-like organism anchored to the castle wall, and lets it absorb him. The Queen Plaga is the reproductive heart of the entire parasite ecosystem. It produces Plaga eggs. It's the mother organism, and Salazar feeds himself to it like an offering. What comes out is genuinely one of the most bizarre boss forms in the franchise. The fused creature is this enormous vertical mass of tendrils, chitinous armor, and petal-like growths rooted into the architecture itself. Salazar's body is visible near the center, encased in a protective pod, still talking, still mocking Leon from inside a biological cocoon. His remaining Verdugo merges into the structure too, becoming a massive appendage capable of instant kill attacks, and the scale contrast is what sells it. This is a guy who barely comes up to Leon's chest. He looks like a strong breeze would finish him, and now he's the central nervous system of a creature the size of a building. It's like watching a chihuahua pilot a tank, except the tank is alive and made of parasites. The worst part is, he's still conscious through all of it. The dominant Plaga preserved his mind completely, so every shrieking insult during the fight is coming from a guy who willingly crawled inside a giant parasite flower because he thought it would make him powerful enough to win. It didn't. Leon kills the entire fused organism. Centuries of the Salazar family's guardianship, betrayed by one fanatical little man who wanted to be bigger than he was. The thing that consumed him didn't make him a god. It made him a component. A tiny screaming face inside a monster that was mostly not him. Which is, not ideal. But if Salazar's downfall was getting swallowed by his own weapon, wait until you see what happens when Albert Wesker injects himself with a virus he literally designed from scratch. Ouroboros Albert Wesker. Every villain in this franchise eventually loses control. Birkin injects himself in a panic. Lisa gets experimented on against her will. Salazar fuses with a giant flower because a cult leader told him it was a good idea. But Wesker spent decades planning this. He engineered the virus. He refined it. He built the entire delivery system, and then he stuck it in his own arm and turned into a tentacle monster in a volcano, which is, not ideal. Ouroboros kills almost everyone it touches. It's a progenitor-based strain designed to rip through the human population like a filter, destroying anyone who doesn't carry a very specific genetic trait. If you don't have the right DNA, Ouroboros tears you apart from the inside out, your body consumed by a writhing mass of black tentacles until there's nothing left that even resembles a person. Just a pile of oily, thrashing roots with a grudge. But Wesker wasn't normal. He'd been modified since childhood through the Wesker Project, an umbrella eugenics program that dosed selected kids with progenitor derivatives. He survived. He got superhuman speed, reflexes, strength. For years he operated as this impossibly composed supervillain, dodging bullets in a trench coat, backhanding boulders, monologuing about the next stage of human evolution, like a guy who's genuinely believed he was already there. And honestly, he kind of was. Before Ouroboros, Wesker was the most dangerous thing in the entire series. He orchestrated the mansion incident, he manipulated Tricell, he captured Jill Valentine and used her antibodies to refine Ouroboros into something more lethal. The plan was simple. Load the virus into missiles, launch them into the atmosphere, kill everyone who didn't meet his genetic standards, rule whatever was left. Hey Albert, what's step 2? Genocide. Cool. And step 3? Be king of the survivors. Great. No notes? But here's where it all falls apart. During the final confrontation with Chris and Sheva, Wesker injects himself with Ouroboros. Not out of desperation. He does it because he genuinely believes he's the one person on Earth perfectly suited to control it. His enhanced body partially accepts the virus. For a brief moment, it looks like he might be right. Then the tentacles start. Massive black appendages erupt from his back and arms. His skin darkens to a slick, metallic sheen as biomass spreads across his body like an oil spill with ambition. The sleek, controlled image he spent the entire series cultivating dissolves in real time. He's not ascending. He's being eaten alive by his own creation, and the setting is perfect. A volcano, molten lava, the most dramatic possible stage for the most dramatic possible meltdown. The guy who built the virus, tested it, refined it, and planned to reshape the entire species with it, still didn't fully understand what it would do to him. That's not just hubris. That's the definition of the word. Every other entry on this list involves someone losing their humanity to something they didn't fully choose or didn't fully understand. Wesker understood it better than anyone alive. He chose it with absolute certainty, and it still consumed him. The architect of Ouroboros ends his story as a writhing mass of black tentacles, sinking into lava, screaming at the two people who refused to let him play God. Not all stories have a moral, but this one does. Don't build a virus that eats people and then inject it into yourself inside a volcano. That's just common sense. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.